Hmm. I tried to record a similar video last week. I mean, I've tried to record this video many times, essentially kind of just a general depression. What's depression all about? What's it like? What's it like to experience it? And I think where I go wrong is trying to record this on days that I feel depressed. Today I feel okay. Today is not a depression day, as I sometimes call them. It's more difficult to access fluidity and thought without thought without like a meanness to it, I guess. When you're depressed, there's me. I get like neural inflammation, uh, which is like you kind of get brain fog. You just kind of it's hard to remember things. Sometimes you like mispronounce things. You don't have a lot of energy for conversations or even like bringing any sort of intellect to conversations. It's just in a contrast of feeling pretty dang good. Everything's going good. Everything's clear. You don't feel constricted. You feel open. You feel fluent with the people you're around. You're having easy verbal fluency. You're not thinking about what you're doing. You're present. That is very different. It's very hard to grasp that when you are depressed, when you have a depression day, or especially if you're having brain fog and neural inflammation. So in my last video, I haven't watched it back because I thought it was awful and I felt terrible the whole time about it. But I just wanted to record it, right? So maybe it's a rough draft at this point. I kept repeating that depression is not sadness. Depression is not really even extreme sadness. Sadness is like a symptom. It's like one of the things that comes with depression. But I think, oh, and I am going to talk about anxiety as well. That is a part of this. But so depression is how is it not sadness? I think that is an important part because someone who doesn't experience depression, a lot of times, if you have a loved one who's experiencing depression, you're trying to emphasize, you're trying to like, you're really trying to understand what they're going through. But the worst you've ever felt is the worst you've ever felt. I mean, you can only think of the worst you have ever felt. I mean, immediately this is like so overly complicated. So depression is not sadness, not just sadness, because it's kind of an inability to plan your way out of how you're feeling. Sadness is, a lot of times when someone's depressed, someone will say, well, what's wrong? Why are you depressed? What's going on? It's not often just a situation. It's not often just like a one thing in your life that you're ruminating about that's eating you, and it's like, oh, I can't cope with this specific situation. Um, Depression has kind of this like it has flavors to it. It's like a nihilism, meaning you're kind of just negative about all your future plans. You're negative about what's going on. The things that you typically like, you're not going to like on these days. Um, uh, and when I say these days, I'm just coming back to like depression days. Like I think it's helpful. Maybe it'll be confusing at first, but I think it will be helpful to come back to comparing like a good day for me versus a depression day because it's just two very different beings. It's two very different ways of how I show up to myself and in social in friend family interactions. So it has this nihilism. It has this kind of negative attitude towards things. So it's like, yes, you're sad. Maybe you can start to pinpoint, okay, there's this thing that triggered me. This one thing got me going. I think your brain will always find, hey, why is it that I'm sad? Okay, what the fuck's going on? Like, why am I a depressed sad boy today? And I think it is easy to pick something or find ways in which you are inadequate, especially of late. Um, I think we have that internal moderator. Our internal narrator is kind of like hard on us sometimes. Like sometimes we're hard on ourselves. Sometimes we're overly analytic. I mean, because look, we're all human. We're all made of mistakes. We're all trying to figure this thing out. Like none of us remember asking to be here. We just kind of like, you grow up and then you start to become a teenager and you're like, well, fuck, I gotta take life by the horns. Like I didn't ask to be alive, but here I am. We're all kind of like learning what it means to be human. Ram Dass says we're all just walking one another home. We're all just walking each other home. Life is kind of this. It's kind of this sounds morbid. It's not supposed to be. It's kind of the path to death. This is such a immense, wild thing here. That it's hard to. I guess I'm trying to say it's like we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. And there's this hard voice that's like, hey, you didn't know exactly how this was going to turn out. You didn't predict the future. You didn't do exactly what you want. I mean, because wouldn't you? Who would choose to feel depression? Who would choose to feel anxiety? Who would choose to feel pain? They're 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 feelings that they're things that our body kind of generate. This physical meat pod here generates certain ways of clenching up. Certain chemicals are released when specific things happen. There's a reason to. They say anxiety is fear for the future. You're thinking about what might happen in the future, and depression is can be considered you are upset about what happened in the past. A lot of depression seems kind of like there's shame to it. There's guilt to it. There's I wish I knew better, and I wish I did this thing differently. And sometimes you can even bring it to the present. Like, look, all these things around me. Like, oh, this is where I've gotten myself. All this shit in the past that I did got me to exactly where I'm at here. And that could be very uh, you know, uh, uh, to notice such thing, to notice that we have so much momentum. We're going. This is how life works. We're we're we were young kids. We were in school, and they say, "Hey, get through sixth grade, and then you can go to middle school. Cool. And then after middle school, you're gonna go to high school, and after high school, you're gonna go to college, and after that, you're gonna go to after graduate or what do they call those? Some stupid postgraduate degrees or whatever. That you're gonna go get a job, and there is this sense in the Western world, the way we were all kind of raised. There's this sense of like going like we're going to reach this place, like we're going to arrive. There is a sense in our way of being as humans that we're going to get to this spot. We're going to get to this place where we don't feel fear, shame, guilt, sadness. Like we're just gonna get to we don't have to go to work. We don't have any obligations. We don't have to repaint the spare bedroom. We don't have to wash the dishes. There is kind of this thing in the back of a lot of our heads that we're going to arrive in life. Alan Watts very elegantly speaks of life being kind of a dance. Life is not getting from this part of the room to the other side of the room at a certain speed and with a certain punctuation. We don't arrive at the other side of the room. Life is the dance in between. Life is the breezy movement with the music and the environment and the eye contact in the present moment, the non-thinking, the joy that is experienced when dancing in a room, when there's other people around. It's not. Alan Watts also speaks of, the greatest conductors are not those who play the fastest or those who have the loudest ending. You know, there's something in our heads in the Western world that has kind of trained us to think, I'm going to get somewhere. I'm going to arrive at this place. And this is where anxiety and depression come in, because you are anxious about what may happen or what may not happen. You're anxious about living incorrectly. You have fear that this thing might happen. Like right now in the present moment, here and now, the thing you have, visual pictures and words, however the way in which you think, you have this projection of, based off of the information you have now, you trying to put together these patterns into, okay, well, this thing is clearly going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I'm incapable of handling it when it does happen. So we could be ruminating. We could be really kind of caught in our heads. And there is levels of anxiety, even reaching back. I speak about, the past, the shame, the guilt aspects of depression, looking back into the past, wishing you had just done things differently, wishing trying to make your body right now feel sad, like these chemicals are being released when you're sitting here. If you're just sitting there staring at the wall, like thinking about when you got a fucking DUI 5 years ago and you had to pay all this money and your baby mama left you, and these things, life happens. We all have our shit, right? You're sitting in the present moment. You're right here thinking of something that has already happened. You're kind of recalling and repeating and reliving this situation that there is a part of you that wants to learn from it. You're thinking to yourself, why did I do that? Why would I choose to, what the hell? There it's human. It is human. It's not that abnormal. A lot of people are doing this. I mean, we're all kind of a basket case in our head, really. If you stop and just observe your thoughts as they're passing by, you're a damn mad person. We're all pretty nutty, as it turns out. We just have this external facade that we all have to play along with. We have this cultural zeitgeist that we have to um, keep face with. We have our customer service mask, our coffee shop face. And it's part of being a human. It's part of having an ego. It's part of experiencing life and having we have to have a societal avatar to exist. Like, there would be no personality to you if you didn't have an ego or a projection of your interactions with others, how it makes you feel, and kind of what you believe others think of you. Kind of creates a lot of what our ego is and a lot of what our internal dialogue is with ourselves. So we could be depressed thinking about something that's not here, so what we have to do, for me, I started noticing these things. That's a huge part, is being aware, not being caught in the thought, right? So when you're having an anxiety attack, when you're having, let's back up. Let's not talk anxiety attacks yet. I will get to those. But let's say we're just having an anxious feeling. You're having that, maybe what does a relaxed person look like? Maybe their face isn't all tensed up, their shoulders are down, their shoulders are back, they're comfortable. Imagine how you may feel when you're at a family event. You have no reason to be anyone other than yourself. You can laugh. You're very comfortable with what's going on. You don't feel threatened in any way. You're relaxed. Your body language, you're kind of unconsciously doing certain things. Your feet are even facing your loved ones. If there is this general openness. There's a lot of great research on lobsters, actually, when it comes to serotonin. There is higher levels of serotonin when we are kind of relaxed and opened, and our shoulders are back. Lobsters, actually, when you take away their serotonin, if they are the alpha lobster at the top of the tank, you take away their serotonin, they actually kind of close back in and they sink to the bottom of the tank. So there's a hierarchy with lobsters that we've tested kind of how serotonin works. I think it's serotonin that it is. Um, it's good stuff though. I'm sure you can find that if that interests you. Lobsters, serotonin, depression, hierarchy, something, you'll find it. So there's also so so the opposite. So yeah, we're open up. Um, this is how we feel when we're open, we're ready. You're comfortable with where you at. You're comfortable with yourself and what you're there to do. Versus think of someone who is depressed. What do they look like? Maybe maybe you think of someone with their hood up. Maybe you think of kind of a more of a closed off physical stature, posture. Maybe shoulders kind of humped over. Um, maybe their feet are kind of facing in. Maybe they're trying to appear small. This is kind of an unconscious thing that a lot of us that's going to happen. This is how you get when you're depressed. You're kind of closed off. Uh, and think about when you're anxious, there is an aspect of kind of like wanting to appear small, but even sometimes anxiousness is busy anxiousness. It is, you are open, but think about your shoulders is a great one, your jaw, your all this muscle tension, your eyes. If you're anxious, you might be like, okay, let's go. We got to do this thing. And maybe you're kind of moving fast. Maybe you're breathing. If you notice your breathing, maybe your breathing is up here in your chest when you're anxious, or when you're overly ruminating about the past or the future. So one thing you want to try to do, one thing you want to remember is when we can become aware of these things. Oh, what is my body doing? Okay, I'm thinking about this thing. Oh, the mind is ruminating over the past again. There I go again. There the mind goes. Oh, how human I am. Okay, forgive yourself, because we'll judge ourselves a lot for even having these thoughts, for even having, if you have intrusive thoughts. I've dealt with a ton of intrusive thoughts, and I thought I was the worst person ever, and there was this reaction that I would have to intrusive thoughts, that would be kind of um, like a tick in response to the intrusive thought. And this is something that I've cleared up with, I think, a lot of this work around mindfulness and meditation and yoga, breath work, a lot of this stuff that I'm kind of trying to bring into the conversation here, is I think it's kind of eliminated a lot of these kind of tics that I had, a lot of these uh, things that I would do physically, kind of unconsciously. They would just happen when I was not getting my preference. When it's kind of like you might hear of OCD, these sorts of things. I think a lot of us overly diagnose ourselves with OCD. It's kind of this casual BuzzFeed word in a lot of ways, but it's actually not. I don't think that it's helpful to attach these things to our identity all the time. Maybe to open up conversation and understand ourselves, but I think that as we discover these, our own neuroses, which we all have, I think there's so much information out here, and there's so many ways to learn about what's happening rather than just sitting and suffering with what we're experiencing, that we can kind of, over time, with patience, with perseverance, with work, with actual doing things work, I think we can kind of unwind these things. I used to be someone who would consider himself someone who I would tell people I have OCD. And there's certain things that people, my loved ones, would know about me. Like, the simple, here's a great example that I'm sure a lot of people, we stress about being an even number when you're turning up the volume or whatever. You know, these sorts of little, like, quirky things we all have. And oh, I'm so, yeah, it's just this thing about me, and when it generally gives you anxiety and you allow it to really become part of your identity and you allow it to genuinely affect you, and it's now negatively affecting your relationships. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a personality, but when you start to notice these things are unhelpful, when you start to notice that maybe you don't want to identify with someone with depression. Maybe you haven't been to a doctor and he's told you you have depression. You have such and such. You have such and such. We think that's the only way that we confirm we have something. We have this this disease or this sickness. You know, man. I mean, I don't think you should go around self-diagnosing yourself after you know, a couple Reddit threads, but there is. Listen, man, we're all human. This is part of being a human. These are parts of the experiences that I have in, you know, within my consciousness, in my head. You know, I mean, where is it? Is it floating around here? The experiences that we have are a byproduct of our modern culture, are a byproduct of how and what a human is, like what, you know, even specifically like how are Americans in such way, how uh, the series of events and teachings and experiences that I had as I was growing up in certain years, certain detrimental years, shape who I am, shape what I experience, shape how I solve problems. They shape how I contemplate my own existence. They shape how I show up in the world. They shape my reactions. We kind of have this weird feeling in the Western world, and it's no fault of our own. But we kind of have this weird feeling that we like arrived on planet Earth like in a spaceship, and we're being taken care of by like a government, or you know, there are powers who know everything, and they are planning out our life, but we were born with absolute complete free will as complete individuals, and regardless of what happens to us when we're adolescents or teen, or even, you know, in your 20s or 30s, it doesn't affect who we are and how we show up, because we just are this person, and we just deal with what happens to life, you know. But we really are, you know, if you really think deeply on evolution, which I think is a healthy exercise, you know, you really think about how our lungs don't work if we don't have trees, right? Like, what are we breathing in? Where do we get oxygen? So why are we considering ourselves separate than a piece of us that must exist? If trees and oxygen did not exist, we would not exist, right? So we kind of separate ourselves. We kind of compartmentalize ourselves into these little little separate, you know, we act like we are on Earth, not of Earth. um and we kind of, you know, when we grow up reading all these books, all these you know, in class you're reading textbooks, and your teachers are the authority, so they're teaching you, um, and you assume, you know, when you're young especially, you assume like, dude, this person literally knows, like they're a teacher. And then, you know, you kind of get older, and you're like, oh wait, I never really thought about, like, okay, of course they don't sleep here, huh? Right? And you know, remember having those little like goofy thoughts when you start to think about what is a teacher. And then you get older, and you start, you know, when I started getting like a few years into my 20s, I remember I started having people around me, and people that I've been friends with since I was a kid, they'd become teachers. And I'm like, oh, like, yeah, so you're a teacher now? And at first you're like, wait, you're a teacher? And then you start thinking, oh yeah, okay, actually, they probably do a pretty good job. And then you kind of remember, yeah, yeah, they're human. Okay, so my teachers were probably pretty human too. And you start to really think about, you know, your teachers were actually your age. You know, I remember I had teachers who were like 25 years old, and when I was 23, I'm like, I had teachers. I like, you think they're so on this pedestal, but we also kind of think about that when it comes to like anybody in control of money, or anybody with power, or I know that even saying the word government has a lot of annotation on it that kind of like puts our mind into somewhere when I'm not really trying to bring it. Uh, the structure of what it means to like exist and grow up and be a human and come out of this giant rock hurling through space, you know, this thing that is called evolution, that we are understanding, you know, we do understand a lot of this very deeply, but this might be news to you, but we don't know everything. Like there is, I mean, there's literally a thing called a theory of everything, and it is a consistently evolving no answer that like all these, very intelligent people and physicists and philosophers are trying to understand. Like we're trying to understand what is consciousness, what is it like to be something. It's like a kind of a brushstroke of what consciousness means to have an experience. We don't know. There's not some dude. This may. I promise this is important. This I know this seems like too far fetched or too left field to have anything to do with depression and anxiety, but truly understanding what you are and not how you got here, but how 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 your experience of yourself is, man, how do I word it? Because learning about yourself, learning the history, what we know so far, and I'm not even saying like what I've learned and what I've studied and what I've read about is like the capital T truth, and like this is the only one way. I'm telling you, when you start to explore any of these kind of forks when it comes to philosophy and evolution and biology and what are you and what is, you inevitably get into this kind of God side of things, but I'm not talking about God, religion God. I'm not talking about the God that pops in your head. I'm not talking about the man with the beard in the clouds that a lot of us unconsciously think about when we hear the words like God. I'm talking about I'm talking about the core of ultimate love. Imagine love continually going like infinite love. I mean, I think even the word love has so much annotation on it. Let me back up. Let's back up. I apologize. I'm trying to. My notes are just my intention. I didn't want to overthink this. Uh, um, and so my intentions are really to just explain anxiety and depression in a way that helps people, those who have it and those who do not. I kind of started. I was talking about how what depression is and isn't. It's not just extreme sadness. It is this something is wrong. Something feels wrong. It's a we're kind of this chemical factory where there's all these different things. If you take a say a vitamin D pill, you think of it, okay, well, vitamin D is a supplement that you buy. Well, no, is vitamin D is a process in which the sun affects an organism, and it's a vital part of our structure. So if you take out vitamin D, things start to go wrong in the human factory. So we 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 misunderstand. It's if we think of ourselves like a chemical factory, if we think of ourselves, it's a something is wrong. I am missing something. Right now for me to speak to you, there's millions and billions of cells and all these things happening and all these things firing and all these things uh, you know, combusting and combining and duplicating and depleting and releasing. We can't see it, but our pores are releasing certain things. There's these synapses, this is firing. That's all going on. That's all happening. When you're depressed, it feels like something in that process is like fucked up. It feels like something in that process is like like just not working, just busted. And the problem is, a lot of the problem that adds to it is we identify with that and we feel like an idiot because of that. We feel like that's something like it's our fault. We right now you're sitting there, breathing, and your heart is pumping and your blood is moving on, and there's all these, billions of things that are happening within you. Uh, and you don't take credit for them. You don't say, "Oh, that's me pumping my heart." Like I'm consciously pumping my heart. I'm consciously remembering to breathe. You know, uh, so but there's this thing with depression and anxiety and a lot of illnesses and a lot of mental health stuff that when it starts to happen, we take credit for it. We make ourselves feel bad for having these bad thoughts. We make ourselves feel bad for experiencing um, inadequacy, for not being able to handle whatever's going on, for being anxious. It's this big cycle. Depression is kind of, and then the situation is like, yeah, of course this is happening, and anxiety is, I can't handle this happening. So th- there's this there's this problem with the I, with the constant, this constant attachment to it's this reacting. It's how I was saying, I have, if you have an intrusive thought, you might have a little tick afterwards. Like you think of, as you're driving down the freeway or you're in the passenger seat of a car, like, oh, imagine if I lean my head out the side of this car and just put my eyeball on the grate as we're going 75 miles an hour, that would fucking hurt. And then you go, I don't think that's what a crazy person would think about right now. You're literally in a car with someone that you enjoy. You're in the car with your family. Like, let's not think about putting our eyeball against the side of that barricade. Um, if you never had an intrusive thought, that probably sounds like a crazy, crazy thing to experience, but that's what intrusive thoughts are. Or like, hey, can I hold your baby? And you're just thinking, like, I could chuck this baby, and not in a jokingly way. You're like almost afraid that your body may react and just chuck that baby or something. You become fearful. You have a response to a thought. The response to the thought is what gets you sticky. The response to the thought is what you have to start saying, nah, no, I don't want to think that. I'm not gonna think that anymore. Well, what's something that I could put in its place, or what's a response to that? Even backing up, even identifying, saying I don't want to think that. I don't think that's even helpful. I think even just saying, "Oh, there my mind goes again." There I am again. I had a counselor one time. She told me to think of this was actually helpful. She told me to think of yourself like when you're throwing a pity party, when you're being depressed, when you're like being obtuse, and you notice it, and you have this awareness, and then you're like, well, dude, I suck. I am an idiot, and whatever. Um, start to start to treat yourself like your depressed self, your bummer mood self. That dude who doesn't show up as the perfect partner for for your wife, or the perfect father for your son and daughter, or the perfect uncle, or the perfect friend, or whatever. This when you're showing up and you're noticing I'm being my depressed self, you have this awareness like, okay, I'm doing the sad thing again. Talk to yourself like, this is what the counselor said, talk to yourself like you're a drunk friend. Imagine you're out with your homie and you two are having some drinks, and your homie has more than you, and they get a little slosh, and they kind of had a rough week, and they lose it. They start crying. We know how it gets with the booze. Sometimes it'll poke you. It's easy. It gets you. It's an antidepressant, or it's a depressant rather. And say your friend started crying. And they're like, I don't know, man. I just really been going through a lot lately, and so and so is left me, and whatever. Maybe they're sad. They're getting down on themselves. What are you gonna say to them? Are you gonna be like, are you gonna say, you fucking pussy, man up? You need to shape up. Like, bro, get over it. Or you're a depressed idiot, or why are you thinking, or you're incapable, or what does our mind tell us? What does your mind tell you? Maybe it's different than the shit that mine tells me. Mine happens to be brutal and specific and very mean sometimes. Maybe yours is similar. would you talk to your friend, your drunk friend, calling him an idiot, judging him, having a reaction to what he's experiencing? He's experiencing sadness. Would you label him in a certain way, or would you say, "I hear you, bro. That's all right, buddy. Let's get you home. Let's get you some water. Let's get you a fucking delicious grilled cheese." Because that's what you get your crying drunk friend, is a grilled cheese sandwich, by the way. Um, you know, and it sounds so overly obvious, right? Like, of course you wouldn't talk to your friend like that, but we speak to ourselves in that way. The response to the thought in the first place becomes like where our ego, where our personality, where identity like really digs in, where it really makes us feel bad about having those thoughts, about experiencing what we're currently experiencing. We put a label on it. We bring out our report card and we put F minus, you suck. Boom. Like, bro, you don't have to do that. You could, oh, I'm noticing, okay, instead of like, you're a dumb bitch, you talk to yourself, your internal dialogue is a bit more sweet, friendly, supportive. You got to start treating yourself like you would a friend who needs help. This is part of the human experience, and this might feel stupid, this might feel silly. That's part of what comes with depression. A lot of what comes with depression is it feeling fake. Yeah, it feels so fake. It feels contrived. It feels like you're a sissy boy. It feels like you are incapable of experiencing bad emotions. It feels like everyone else has their shit in lock, and like your life is way harder, and you're just really confused at how everyone is not completely suffering at all times, because that's how it feels like it is in your head. It feels fake. When you get to coming around to admitting you have depression, admitting you have suicidal ideation, admitting that you have intrusive thoughts, admitting that you have negativity, extreme crippling anxiety, a lot of this, I think, especially when it comes for a man, I mean, for me, it feels very like it's such a it's beyond vulnerable, but you are it feels weak. It feels definitely weak, but it's not. It's actually a psychological form of bravery, to kind of stand up to your depressed, anxious mind and go, dude, it's all right. Like, okay, something's going on here. Like, we're gonna have to change paths. Whatever I'm thinking about, whatever I'm doing. Yeah, I listen. I'm hearing that lesson loud and clear. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna grab it by the horns. Let's go. I'll handle it. But it's you know I should probably do this in another video. Actually, no. I'm gonna keep going. I think this is part of it. So depression. So I was first diagnosed with major depressive disorder when I had first gone in. I mean, it really, you fill out a questionnaire, you check some boxes, you kind of, a lot of it is kind of like figuring out or coming to terms with or looking at, like, did you have some childhood trauma? They do a CBT, is it the cognitive behavioral therapy? They basically have you fill out this thing, and it's like, my parents were divorced when I was younger. I was raped. I was poor. I couldn't afford whatever. We were evicted. Like, you kind of have like these. I don't know exactly, but I don't remember exactly. But you check off these things, and you have like a score at the bottom of it. It's kind of the experience of going to the doctor when you have depression. And then you have a conversation that, for me, it was certainly less than 10, 8, 7 minutes. Uh, and before you know it, you prescribe this antidepressant, and you're kind of trying to explain to this doctor, like, I don't know what it is. I just like feel really like sad, and my body hurts, and I hate everything, and I want to die a lot. And you're like looking at him like, please solve my problems. And he says, yes, sir, I know the answer for that. There's this pharmaceutical company who gives me a bonus each year if I prescribe enough of, just kidding. The way that we diagnosed depression is super dumb and shitty, and I don't think that we understand it or even try to understand it. But what we have is this medical, establishment that is what you do. It's this place that you go to when your arm is hanging there and you need surgery. But we also are bringing people with mental health problems to these places, and it's just completely a shit show, and it sucks. Um, That's certainly my opinion, and we can fist fight about it if you agree or disagree. So I'll have a debate. uh, um, so I got diagnosed with, so through this questionnaire, through this short conversation, I was diagnosed at first with major depressive disorder. He prescribed me some SSRIs, which are like a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. They just basically start to mess with your brain chemicals. And so I tried a few different ones. They kept upping my dose. I felt completely fucking out of my mind. Listen, these do help a lot of people. There's low doses of certain things that like don't have such obstructive effects on the brain, but the research around this is really the long-term research around this and what it really does to our brain and what it does to like our psychological experience of ourselves and the world. It's not as heavily researched as you think it should be. It's not as foolproof as it's just not great. So I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Tried a few. Was at a really high dose. I was to the point where I was just feeling zombied out. I was pushed over into my suicidal ideation. I didn't have like the fear around it. I had this like a blah numbness, of course. So like physically putting a loaded gun to my head was like, it didn't freak me out. I felt nothing. It was like in noticing that, I couldn't have a reaction or like an emotion to that. And it just, oh my God, it was just this terrible feeling. It was like a feeling of nothingness. You almost like wish you were sad. It was super strange. And then I had a bunch of side effects. And I had a bunch of, I was going through a lot of psychological crazy shit anyway. Like, I'm already a pretty weird dude, and this was definitely like a few. I'm actually like just coming out of this last couple of years of my life of kind of insanity. I think last few years, and I'm still a bit in it for sure. I'm just, as I gain more distance, I start to kind of understand, and I kind of start to like recoup some of the information that I learned from myself and through reading and listening to stuff. So. So major depressive disorder, Lexapro. So I was also diagnosed with bipolar depression, which, I mean, we hear the word, this is another one, we hear the word bipolar and then we're immediately, like people are like, okay, so you're going to freak out and stab people suddenly, or you're very unstable. There's this, with these psychiatric conditions, the way they're painted in our head, schizophrenia, any of this stuff, multiple personality disorder, multiplicity, all this stuff. This is another thing that you have to notice. In your head, it's painted as this like weird, like Hollywood videos or Hollywood movies, and kind of like what we were taught when we were growing up, what our parents were taught, what they passed down to us. They only have the information they were given. We misunderstand a lot of this stuff. We think of this condition is the crazy person screaming at the bus stop. This is way different. Back in the day, something like schizophrenia, for example, if you showed signs of being schizophrenic when you were younger, you would actually be sent to the like village shaman to go live and learn how to be a shaman. It is the way that your brain works, or the way that whatever you've got going on internally, psychologically, doesn't fit with the way that culture, society, um, um, our capitalistic marketplace of being. It doesn't fit with that. It's a weird. It's too fringy. It doesn't make sense. It makes people uncomfortable. it's this crazy. If you call someone crazy, if you can disregard them, you can instantly other them, and it makes you feel safe about how you are sane. Um, but yeah, it really is this kind of like learned madness that we have. I'm terribly going off path and a bit all over the place, but I do think that it helps. I'm sure it will spark conversations at the very least. I think that the way in which I have experienced conversation in long lectures myself, these sorts of like rambling to no ends, were some of the most profound sentences that I would end up hearing. So I guess I will try to. My God, antidepressants. Um, mm, so what is it about antidepressant? Okay, so I was diagnosed. So what's important here? The things that are important out of what I'm trying to say here, being diagnosed with these things, is kind of like you have to take things into your own hands. You have to do your own research. You have to learn about how your own mind works, because the people, if you go to the doctors, if you go to even some counselors and therapists, bless them, each and every one of them for sure, but they are also kind of like your teachers. Remember, they're just kind of people who, they certainly have their own experience, and there is, people who are, far left field, different, and I will say better, at truly understanding and truly not checking the boxes, not learning everything they learned from studies in books and from data, from nonfiction ways of understanding the human experience and sadness and depression and anxiety. They only know what they were taught, in what they've experienced. Maybe their personal experience has brought them full circle, but a lot of our damn damn you're gonna have to help yourself. I mean, that's what I'm getting at, is you have to understand what's going. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing when it comes to fitness. Is we have all these diets, and this is another arrival thing that we're kind of trained to, is diets and fitness. We're like, okay, I need to lose 20 pounds. Once I lose 20 pounds, then I never have to, like, then I'm good. I don't have to even, like, what? I don't have to think about what I eat or what I do or how I physically move my body and whatnot. We just get to the next goalpost. It's kind of the way that we're taught to think. Remember, follow this carrot on a stick. Get from elementary school to middle school, and then up to high school and college, and then you'll do this. It's really just this incorrect um, uh, perception of kind of, it has to be a sustainability. It has to be like a lifestyle. It has to be like, you don't have to become obsessed with depression and anxiety and talking about it, and like that's all you do and that's all you consume, and you just like read millions of books about it and whatever. Like, this is, I mean, I love doing all this stuff because this is what I needed at the beginning. I had to get into this. I had to like dive headfirst into what's going on, because it was that or pull the trigger. It was I'm going to die if I don't do something. Like, I am practically dead with my inability and my like not doing anything. Like, these doctors are not helping me. I ended up like cold turkey quitting my antidepressants. This is years and years ago, uh, and oh my God, I was just a total mess. And I think that there was psychological effects, like the way that I had a lot of like depersonalization, derealization. I had a lot of cognitive dissonance. I had a lot of dissociative attacks. Um, maybe attacks is yeah, sure, an attack. Like, my brain was just zapping, bro. I mean, and this was for a while after I got off the antidepressants, literal years after. And I still, I mean, I think that I had permanent effects. I think I had permanent things happen to me by just throwing random, you know, you know, antidepressants and shit at my brain. I mean, not that not that I'm a perfect body is my temple. I've put worse things in my nasal cavity, that's for sure. Um, so it really does take. This is not something that other people can solve for you. This is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. If you're experiencing anxiety and depression, it's on you, baby. It's you and only you. You have to take care of it. I mean, if you got a loved one, if you got a family, if you got friends, if you got people who could, even your boss at work, if they're like, yo, I get it, I understand you, head home today. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. If you got people who understand you, that's a blessing. But really, 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 if you have depression and anxiety, it's on you. And I know that's something that people are almost like, no, don't say that. Like, well, there's this weird, we can't talk about certain things. You got to say the correct things when you're dealing with someone with depression and anxiety. And I feel like we need to open up the conversation. We need to not have fear. We need to not filter ourselves about this shit. We need to personally share our experience. We need to not justify our bullshit. We need to not stay small in our ego. We need to not find things that we can identify with and we latch on and then protect anybody who comes for that part of our identity. These are things that can be in some way, in some form, understood and I don't like to use the word solved here, but there's an understanding of a lot of this depression and anxiety stuff that you can get to through knowledge, through learning, through philosophy, through listening to other people speak about it, through having actual open conversations without the fear, without the armor. Our shit's so bite-sized, it's so quick. But I mean, if you really had um, maybe you're a teenager and you're really close to your mom, but like she doesn't understand, she doesn't know that you're depressed. Like if you just sat down and just had hours worth of conversation or an hour worth of conversation, no phones, nobody else, no fronts, no bullshit, no obligations, nowhere to be, like really just a, hey, I love you, like the person across in the room, like I love you, we got to talk about this. I'm having like I can't handle this on my own. I can't navigate this on my own because when it's in our head cavity, when it's just bouncing around in our dang head, we don't really get like the different perspectives. We keep justifying our bullshit. Our bullshit. Our depression starts to we identify with our depression. We start listening to that mean voice, and we start thinking that's truth, and we start believing the whisperings of the devil. Instead of experiencing that feeling of being the homie to yourself, to your drunk friend, to being like, hey, it's okay, bro. It's having that little flicker of God that's within each of us, that little flicker of love that's within each of us, that little, like, fuck you, nihilism. You ain't taking me down. Like wherever that comes from, wherever we can like get up out of the dust. Like anytime we've ever done it, we forget about the millions of times we've done it, and we've like gotten ourselves out of bed when we didn't want to, and we like pulled ourselves and we did one more rep, and we challenged ourselves to go talk to that girl, like that desire to be more, to experience love, to be present, to say yes, to step into that light. That's such a natural thing. It's such a natural way of being. It's supposed to be our natural way of being. Listening to that, giving power to that, it starts to have a domino effect, starts to have a snowball effect where you start, what you do is what you always do. In this world, where evolution is moving some way, this way that we are existing, the way that it is to be, is going a direction. it's moving at some momentum. Atrophy is a real thing. If you sit there's a guy he's has his arm up like this, and he devoted to never put it down, and he's got his pinky up or something like that, and his arm has become this like tiny little frail stuck little like stale breadstick looking thing, and it's just like that's what happens if you go to the gym and you boom, boom, boom. Look at time is moving. We're projecting. We're going through space. Everything is fluid. Life is momentum. It is moving. If you do some bicep curls, you start to build muscle. Yeah, you have to fuel and listen to the correct person in here. You have to listen to the good wolf. You have to believe the good wolf. You have to say no to the devil. It's don't let my wording of devil and God sway you wrong. There is something that happens in your brain in a lot of our understandings of these words that is an incorrect lie of what these things really are. It doesn't have to have anything to do with religion here. This is just a part of what it means to be a human. There is a spiritual aspect of every single human. This is just language, but there's a piece within you that is life and love, that says yes, that pushes forward, that chooses to go, that chooses to be a something rather than a nothing, that finds delight in the single light in the middle of a chaotic infinity. Uh, there is there's you fuel that side of you. You gas up that good wolf. You gas up that superhero side of yourself. That like I can handle this. I'm not perfect. I'm human. But it takes that nihilistic view of your future that like I'm never going to amount to anything bullshit, and it says, you know what? Maybe I will. Maybe I'm going to die. Maybe I'm going to die trying. Maybe I'm gonna. I believe that I could be those things. Like, why not try? You start listening to that superhero, that you got to give yourself a cape. You got to notice. You got to bring awareness. Awareness is the huge thing, right? You got to notice that this is happening, because you'll be identifying with your thoughts. You'll be synced up, thinking that everything that is being thought, all these thoughts that are happening, you're thinking that they all are you, and I'm such an idiot, I'm such a dipshit, and I suck, and my kids are better off without me, and I'm terrible at my job. Whatever it is, this extreme, this heaviness that comes with being depressed and anxious, it it is given fuel. You fuel this thing up, you fire this thing up, you by listening to it, by not saying, I see you, fool, I see you, devil, I see you depressed Jake. You know what I mean. You got to feed the good wolf. I mean, that really is. Okay, and listen, like, this isn't some shit that I read, right? Feeding the good wolf. Even like this is something that I had to really discover. I think the part I mentioned about depression, feeling fake, feeling contrived, the believing in yourself thing, the like self-love thing, the listening to the dude with the superhero cape, not the nihilistic, sad guy, being there for the sad guy. Okay, yeah, but what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna be positive, because I know that if I feed this wolf, it's gonna blah blah blah. That is something I discovered. Like, it took me a while, because you have to keep laying this brick by brick. This every time you have a thought, every day that this comes up. Some days are worse than others, but you just got to keep bricking by bricking, and it it really does have momentum. You kind of build yourself into the non-depressed person, the non-anxious person, the person who has a situation happen and has like a little bit of a wedge of um, you know gentle thought before reactivity. Uh, uh, there is a happening, and your response to it, and your response to it gets trained by being and not just overly positive, not putting blinders onto the world. Like, you know, if you're stressed about your bills, the bills are still coming, baby. But like, you kind of get this, but I can handle it. I'm gonna trust that I've taken care of everything before in the past. I'm 30 years old. I've handled it before. I'm gonna damn well handle it again. Let's go. What do I need to do? Let's act. Or there is even a side of that is a letting go. Like I trust, I trust that this will work out. I have done everything I can. I have prepared myself in every which way. There's no sense in being anxious about this thing that is inevitably going to not maybe not inevitably going to happen in such a way, but there is this event that is coming and happening, and I am dealing with this thing. I see that it is not helpful for me in my life to listen to the worst case scenario view of what may happen in the future. I see that that is unhelpful. So I choose to recognize, allow, but shelf, not listen to, allow to float away. Let it be, as the Beatles would say. Let it pass by. In the meditation, we talk about a lot of we talk a lot about observing and noting. Oh, okay, that's a thought. That's a feeling. Yeah, you're sitting on the bench watching the freeway. You're sitting on the bench watching the cars. You're not on the freeway hustling and jostling, experiencing all the emotion of the cars. And I am this and I am that. You watch what the mind does. You watch the brain's madness that we all have of being a human. It's just like a sense. You probably heard the third eye, the mind's eye. It's the sixth sense. I do want to do a video on the third eye, because when I first had heard about it, I thought it was like the coolest, creepiest, like, oh, Illuminati, what's that? Like it is a really cool concept, but it's very confusing to understand at the beginning. But our sixth sense, right now is if you think about in a meditative state, you're just sitting here observing what is happening. Like you aren't your eyesight, you aren't your experience of smell. You can observe the body having these experiences. And it's not a you, it's not like, I'm not saying Jake is observing. It is as a conscious experience, as consciousness itself. I watch the, let's say, five senses. So as I'm sitting here, I have the feeling of touch, of my lips touching one another. I have the feeling of my shirt on my skin, of my bottom on my cushion, of my feet on the floor. That I have feeling. I can hear. What's something that I hear far away? What's something that I hear close? What have I gotten used to? What have I completely blocked out and forgotten that was there? Can I hear a freeway in the distance? Can I hear an airplane? Can I hear my neighbors? Can I hear music? Can I hear my air conditioner? There's all these layers of sound. You got touch. You have sound. You have your eyesight. I can see there is a designated. I'm blanking on a lot of the concepts for visual acuity, but there's like a focal point. You're focusing on one thing. Right now I'm focusing on this camera, but there's also this peripheral out here, right? Like I can see, I'm not watching it, but I can see out of the corner of my eye, I can see my hands, and I'm aware that I'm doing this. You can see up above all these things that you kind of ignore because you have a conscious experience that points at what in physical reality is important to what you need to meet your hierarchy of needs, whatever it is that you're searching to have, whatever need you are searching to have met at this moment. So you have your vision, you can see far, you can see close, you have smell. You could smell deeply. You could even kind of back to touch and feeling. You could feel what your body does when you smell, and you could even kind of just without breathing in, just if you subtly just notice the smell that's already in your nose. Just by breathing through your nose, you kind of notice. Taste. You can. What do you taste? Have you had a cup of coffee? Have you had food recently? Do you taste the remnants of the food? Have you brushed your teeth? you don't even have to do that, but there is taste happening. And what you're doing is you're bringing your awareness to these things, these five senses. And the sixth sense that I was mentioning is thought. This is something that is kind of complicated. It's kind of hard for us to understand. This is kind of the root of meditation in a lot of ways, is the observation of thought and not becoming identified with it. Again, the way we grew up, the way the Western world is, the way the Western world has made us into who we are, the teachings of this current moment of the zeitgeist has made us kind of, we just have so much momentum. We don't stop and notice all of these things. We don't stop and notice that the same way sound is happening. I'm not saying let me hear my air conditioner. It's just there, right? As soon as I kind of sit back in my mind, in a sense, kind of relax into it, the sound is simply happening. There is a happening that has a reverberation of my eardrums vibrating, and it's creating what we call sound. At the same time, the mind, as you listen and things are just happening, the mind is also just happening. Thoughts are just happening. It is part of being a human. It's part of having an experience. Each human on this planet has this happening. But the problem is we over-identify with it. We think we are the thoughts. We think that we are the stream. Imagine if you're, when you're listening to someone mow a lawn, if you're sitting here right now and your neighbor is mowing their lawn, you hear it. You don't think, I am the lawn mower mowing the lawn. I am the neighbor mowing oh, that's a sound. That's happening. And then you have a reaction. Maybe imagine a grumpy person leans his head out the window, turn that shit off. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Or someone who is very calm, and they don't, the happenings of what other people are doing sound wise don't really affect them. They may just, oh, neighbors mowing their lawn, they're back to crocheting, whatever there's a reaction, and what you need to do is train your reaction to, of course, your five senses, to what you see, to what you hear. These are basic practices of emotional intelligence, but really try to think of thoughts in the mind as a sense in which you needn't intertwine. That rhymed, I think, but start treating just as everything in your visual environment. You don't react to every single thing. You choose what to react to. What things are important to me in this very moment to meet my needs? What things are very important for me to listen to as the mind produces thoughts and feelings and ideas. These ideas just kind of percolate out of nowhere. They kind of come up out of nowhere, and though we don't get to choose, how we don't get to choose when we shut our mind off. We don't shut our mind off or stop the flow of thoughts, but we can choose to not. It's almost like a not listening to certain ones or something. It's Yeah, it is this lack of identification with thought. I hate to just consistently restate the same thing, but that really is what it is. Uh, um, and you know, this wasn't taught to us. This is not something that like our parents and grandparents knew about. The depression rates and the suicide rates, anxiety rate, like the amount of people that have anxiety, the amount of prescription drugs that are given out for all of these things these days, it's continually rising. Like, listen, man, if you're listening to this shit, or you have a family member listening to this shit, or your mom is depressed, so you're watching this trying to figure out like what's up with her, and try to like empathize with her and try to understand her condition or something, like seriously, you're not alone. I know you hear it. That's a buzz thing. You're not alone in your thoughts. You have whatever. It really is though. We feel so, these depressive, overly nihilistic bummer thoughts really have this stickiness to them that is like, dude, I am a freak. I am a like evil, gross demon. Like, man, like if everyone's secrets and internal life and thoughts were laid out, truth, and that was our truth rather than our, fictitious kayfabe civilization. uh, um, I think that we would all have such a laugh. We would all just laugh ourselves to death if we truly saw and understood into each other's minds. We walk as if it's so put together out here, but it's just madness inside, and we can't even admit it. We can't even is like the ego protects us from even really like course correcting because it's so far off. Um, okay, so I think I want to try to round out, but I think I want to hit anxiety just specifically, and I really want to offer this goodness for how to handle anxiety attacks and how to reduce anxiety. Like what I really want to, because I'd still deal with depression. I still have, out of the diagnosis, I feel like I believe the bipolar depression. It really is. Some days I open my eyes and it's like, oh fuck, dude, yikes! Like this is one of those days. I think like strap up, let's roll. Like we got work to do. Today is going to be a lot of work in my mind to keep it between the lines. Um, so I still have those, and I'm working on it. I'm consistently trying all these new like supplements and reading these new books, and a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, a lot of breath work, whatever. But anxiety is something that I really don't experience that much anymore. I mean, certainly compared, I used to have anxiety attacks, panic attacks. Everybody kind of has their own version of these. This is another thing that we feel like, ooh, like don't fucking tell anybody I just had that, like because it's completely embarrassing. It's a complete like fragmentation of all of what we are, and our image and our logic and our sense making is just completely out the damn window when it comes to panic attacks. And we think that our body is like we think I mean, people check themselves into the ER consistently because they're having a panic attack and they think it's a heart attack. I mean, this is like a very common thing. I know tons of people who had this exact experience, and I would have conversations with them and they come back and they believe the doctor. Of course, they're not going to believe my crazy ass, but they believe the damn doctor with his lab coat. He's, yeah, you had a panic attack, and I didn't know. And let me I hope I don't make anyone feel bad for having a panic attack and going to the doctor. It really is just this thing that's like pretty intense. It really is like it could be a big deal. Panic attack, anxiety attack. It's kind of your inability to deal with what's happening. A lot of anxiety is born from not being thinking we are unable to handle not having our preference. So let me restate that. Not getting your preference creates anxiety, and your presumption that you cannot handle not having your preference, and like consistently identifying with that, creates this loop of anxiety. So like you have to bring in awareness and logic, and that wedge, you have to bring that into almost the same thing that when if you're talking to your sad depressed friend who's drunk and he's just like hammered and he's like, oh, I'm an idiot, and you're like, you're not an idiot, buddy, you're fine, you're just drunk, it's okay, man, we're fine. You kind of have that same with anxiety, though it's harder to grasp in those moments because anxiety has like a manic, like erratic, frantic feeling to it. But it is a like, okay, what's really happening right now? You get present, you use your five senses to get present, and you realize that like there's no torpedo coming, there's no lion coming. Because look at what's happening when you're having an anxiety attack. Why are you feeling like all these panicky feelings? It's the smaller part of your brain, the fear response, is being turned on. This like through evolution, we have this reptilian part of our brain that gets turned on, it gets activated, and it starts prioritizing. Our conscious thought is certain things happen in the brain in different areas, and we have certain experiences and thoughts. I'm not saying they're exactly correlated, but they are coinciding. Uh, 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 and we have these for a reason. We were running around with loincloths and spears, for like hundreds of thousands of years. Uh, or yeah, a long time. We're what we are was built, this thing that came after monkeys, and we started like having communities and working together and like foraging for food. We started farming, we started saving food and storing food. All these things that started to happen from monkeys. Think about how many freaking years we really were running around. If you hear a rustling over there in the bushes, you have to think that might be a lion. So I need to have a quick, I'm going to survive the best. My species is going to continue to repopulate this earth, evolution, if I have a quick response with my spear ready to go. Is that a lion over there? Is that a tiger over there? I just heard that rustling. So you have this thing that activates. We have all these chemicals that happen, this brainstem, this thing, what is it? What is it? The amygdala. I think I fuck up when I try to get overly sciencey. I think I need to just remain in a philosophical standpoint of explanation. So we have a lion over here, and we have a bodily response, and then our experience, our thoughts and everything is trying to solve it rapidly, trying to find the patterns. What's going on? I'm in fear. I'm anxious about this thing. I'm afraid of this thing that's going to happen. We now have the ability for that to happen, to activate this thing that we have in our human body to respond to actual threats, that was very, very helpful and is very, very good up until like a couple hundred years ago, 100 years ago. I mean, really, iPhone came out in 2007. Like, not that long ago for what we are. We had these fear responses, we had these anxiety, we had immediately get to a heightened state of awareness because you need to be able to attack this lion that you just heard rustling in the bushes. Did you just see out of the corner of your eye like a little piece of tan? Is that a lion? Let's protect my family. We got to survive. This has been happening for a long time. Well, the modern world, the modern culture has things that happen to us. The system is kind of gamed at us a lot when it comes to, social media and technology and the internet. There's a lot of things that activate the same thing that would be activated when a lion is about to attack us. That same thing is activated because it fills someone's pockets, because if I can get you to react, you're going to stay on my site more. If I can get you to react, you're going to play this game more. If I can get you to react, it's more memorable. Just as I was talking about our visual acuity, you're looking at this thing, I'm looking at the camera, I'm kind of ignoring these things around here, my peripheral. It's the same thing. there is, if this was just green over here, this is just green nature, there's no lion, there's no threat, there's no reason for me to pinpoint and look in and figure out what's going on there. It's just something I can, okay, it's safe. Our we're not going to pay it a mind. We're not going to divert our attention to that because it's not, it's just enough, it's okay, it's safety, we're fine, we don't have to worry about that. Well, that same way of presenting content, the same way of presenting people trying to sell us things are capitalistic. Like, put this in front of you, get a reaction because it makes it more memorable for you. Show these certain colors because through evolution we have different reactions to different colors because we only see them in such environments. Imagine if you had lived in the Amazon and you never saw, you know, think about how insane a tiger would look, like how much it would really stand out, or like a white tiger or something. I mean, I don't know if they're in the Amazon. uh, uh, like that would really stand out, you know. So there's a reason in which there's an evolutionary reason why we would respond in these such ways. But now our whole world, this whole thing, is activating that fear response in you as this thing that came after an ape, or you know, whatever your beliefs are. I think a lot of people, you know, would agree on evolution in some senses. This part of your brain is being activated. You're anxious because you think that you're trying to perceive a threat. You have anxiety because you think that this lion is about to pounce on your neck, you know, and you need to have anxiety to be ready for it so you can kill him with a spear and protect your fam. So the world is kind of against us in this way, you know, especially again, this modern, if you're someone who's on, you know, if you're someone who watches the news, this is being played against you very heavily. You're thinking about all these things that may happen. You're afraid of this thing that is coming. This person caused this thing to happen over here on this side of the world, so it's definitely going to make this thing happen. And lo and behold, all the things that you've been so stressed out about have never fucking happened. You think about everything you've ever felt extreme anxiousness about. Did it happen? This is how this works. This is what goes on. We forget this though, like we don't notice. We're so mad. Our thoughts are just boom, 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 just going so crazy that these happenings, these happenings don't ever really happen. But we spend a lot of time ruminating and in fearing that they might happen, fearing for the lion or the tiger to pounce. We are trying to protect ourselves. We're looking out for these threats. We're trying to protect our family, trying to protect our community, trying to protect our loved ones, even our like tribalistic groups. We're trying to not only belong with them, but we're trying to find the enemies. It seems like a helpful thing, right? Find the enemies, figure out who they are so they don't trick us, so they don't, you know, steal our baby, or they don't, you know, take our food supply, or, you know, there is the there's the, you know, primitive part of having a human body, you know, and we have this consciousness projected into it or from it or whatever the hell's going on here. It's it's something that we can't blame ourselves for not understanding, you know. It's something that, you know, this seems, a lot of the stuff seems like really obvious, but there is something about it that is liberating to take some time and just, okay, yeah, that really is what's going on, huh? Damn. Just kind of sit with it. Again, our mind, we're constantly wrapped up in the quarrels of the neurological dance. You know, it's it's okay. So I got around the corner with this anxiety thing. The breath is a huge part of anxiety. The breath is a huge, huge, huge part. Bring awareness to this. You have to start noticing where you're breathing, when you're breathing, how often you're breathing, how fast you're breathing, how slow you're breathing. Are you breathing through your nasals? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you wearing a mask way too damn much? Oh, I don't think anybody should be wearing any damn mask at this point, but watch what the masks do to your breathing. These masks, I think, are actually making us more anxious, which raises cortisol levels, which shuts down. Think about it. When you're in fear, when you think that a lion or a tiger is about to pounce, do you think that your body is like, now is the optimal time to grow your fingernails? Now's the best time to digest that bag of Sour Patch Kids that you ate earlier. No, no. You shut down a lot of stuff inside your body because you're prioritizing the blood being sent to like your extremities. You're prioritizing when you're stimulated like this with a fear response or even like a sensual response. There's things that are shut down that are not working in the same way because your body is prioritizing all this energy to this said things because it has to be able to be reactive and protect itself, because none of that shit matters if you're dead. So the digestive system is not working when you're in a fear response. The fingernails and toenails are not growing when you're in a fear response. Your cortisol levels are high. You actually, I would say your immune system is probably compromised. Your immune system is probably, if we had to say what is 100% working immune system, it is working at tip-top shape. Say someone who's like completely athletic and they're taking all the right vitamins and they're eating all the right things and they're breathing the right air and whatever, and their immune system is this, that's 100%. Do you think your immune system is at your 100% when you're about to stab a tiger, a bear, a lion, oh my, with a spear? No, that's not what happens. You are prioritizing, the chemicals in your body are prioritizing certain things. This is out of your control. This is not what you're not beating your heart. You're not breathing in the air to your lungs. It's an unconscious background task. Yeah, we take credit for certain things, but this is really just like a happening, and we are there's an ego experiencing it. So the happenings of the body, the 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 huh um so what we need to, so the breathing, we need to, when we're doing these things, if you're you're scared, listen, where's your breath? If you pretend you're scared right now, go. What does your body do? Your butt cheeks clench up, your toes move, your fingers move, your shoulders come up, your eyebrows, like you have all this tension, but also the breath escapes and it gets small in your chest. Okay, what does a very relaxed, low heart rate monk look like? He's so relaxed, he's zen. His voice is not even up here in his head, it's down here and it's in his belly, it's deeper. The air, it's not all up in my head, it's not up in my chest. I'm relaxed, right? In the air, I'm breathing through my diaphragm. You wanna be, when you notice that your breath is up high, when you notice that your breath is short, when you notice that your breath, when you notice you're holding your breath, all of these things that are very obvious, don't overthink this. Like, if you're not breathing slow, there is numbers that you can look up, but if you're not breathing slow out and slow in, you are in a state of some sort of heightened awareness, and it's unnecessary for most of our states of being nowadays. We have like all this shit, all this, like it's you're in the middle of Times Square in New York and there's just this color and it's like, look at this, and it's just respond to this, and it's this guy's the enemy and fucking these people are trying to kill you, and it's all this stuff, this stimuli and whatever of the modern world is keeping us small breath, shoulders tensed up. The response of everything that we're doing, our mind is like seeing it as real, experiencing it as real, and so it's making our bodily functions react in a certain way. So what you have to do is you have to bring this awareness. I keep talking about this you have to bring this realizing that your breath is not where it needs to be, and you have to bring it down into the diaphragm. You need to be breathing primarily in and out of your nose, And you need to be breathing out super slow. You need to be breathing in super slow. Again, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel unnatural. It's going to be hard to concentrate on that even. But I'm sure that people, if you have anxiety, I'm sure people have told you about breath work. I'm sure breathing techniques. Have you tried this? Whatever. This is, again, it's great. There is a break glass in case of emergency side of anxiety attacks and breathing techniques, and like, okay, I need to, I need to Wim Hof to get this way. There is this, there is a response when you need it, but generally, when you're alive, existing right now as you're watching this video, as you're going to work, as you're getting in the shower, as you're getting out of the shower, as you're wiping off your mouth after you just brushed your teeth, as you're texting, as you're scrolling through social media, as you're laying in bed, before bed, as you're laying in bed in the morning, which you shouldn't do. What is your breath like? Where is the center of your breath? Where's the tension at in your body? This is also something that's really accompanied with breath. You need to be breathing through your diaphragm, which is, your belly, low belly. You can really, if someone said, take the deepest breath that you've taken all day, you can find you could find it really deep in there. There's just been air stale sitting there, man. It's all just stale, bum, stinky air sitting there because there's just chilling down there. It's all this, CO2 chilling down there, and you got all this. You're just breathing up here because of all this stimuli. So the breath is one of the most important things, yoga, meditation. This helps train the breath. This helps train not train the breath. I don't think that's the best word. Yoga is union with the breath. Yoga is union with the body. So when you do yoga, when you meditate, it trains you. What you do is what you're always doing. Like I said, right? You're training yourself in this way. You bring alertness and awareness to the breath, to breathing, and tense. What am I physically responding to that I'm mentally picturing? And is that true in the present moment? Is that actually happening? Or is my creative, wonderful, brilliant brain filling in the blanks of what it thinks that it should be doing? Is it trying to protect me? Thank you, brain, for trying to protect me, but there's no lion, there's no tiger. We don't need protection right now. Okay. So you notice it's happening, you notice you're breathing this way, you notice that you're tense, and you go, oh, okay, look, there's no lion. And then maybe, give yourself 30 seconds of breath, 20, give yourself 4 in and 4 out, like just real slow. I mean, that's going to be less than a minute, something like that. You're just and feel where the breath is. Don't be caught up in like trying to get rid of the thoughts that are coming. Thoughts happen, just like sound, thoughts happen. You don't stop them from happening. Meditation is not sitting down, stopping your mind from having thoughts. That doesn't happen unless you're at a certain stage of enlightenment. You just observe that they're happening. Okay, I'm still having that thought. I don't need to get into the ring and wrestle with it. I don't need to put on my boxing gloves and fight that thought and tell it that it's untrue, whatever. I can go, oh, okay, that's just a thought. When you physically respond, you mentally respond. It seriously helps. It's another thing that feels fake. You're having an anxiety attack. You're having this shit that's happening. You're stressed out. You're yelling at people. You're whatever. It feels justified. You're like, why aren't you all doing this exact same thing? No. It's your chemicals and it's your responsibility to take care of it. It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. You have to, okay, I understand that I'm not going to be my most helpful self to these people around me, to myself, by responding in such a way. So how do I readjust? All right, let's be gentle with ourselves. Okay, well, the mind's doing that thing, and what's really going on here? Let's breathe my breathing in. And again, there is a break glass in case of emergency with a lot of this breathing stuff, but breathing is something you're doing all the time. Breathing is something you've already been doing. It really is this magic up, down, left, right, X, square, triangle, like cheat code to life that is right. It's the most in front of us thing ever. You're probably hearing a lot about breath work and breathing techniques and stuff nowadays. It's a BuzzFeed word, and there's Wim Hof and all these things, but the core of it is the breath is a direct correlation to our physical state and our mental projection or understanding of what we think is happening. So we don't have to, we need to be dealing with reality. Like if you're watching a movie, if you're watching Fast and the Furious, it's fun to have like, oh, my chemicals are moving all around and I'm excited and I'm at the edge of my seat, and you're smiling and you're experiencing what they're experiencing on there, but it's not actually a happening. You're not actually about to be hit by, a 69 Dodge Charger. It's happening in the movie and you get to experience it, but look at what your body does. Oh, you gasp. Your mind thinks that it's actually happening. You could do the same thing without watching a physical movie. You could be thinking about what might be happening and your body is responding to it like you're in Fast and Furious. What's the truth about Fast and Furious? Okay, I'm scared, or maybe I'm in a scary movie. I'm reactive to this, but you can leave the theater and it's not there. What's the truth about it? Okay, the truth is I'm in a dim hallway. It's rather quiet. Uh, that lady is sweeping and she was very polite when I talked to her early. So the actual reality of what the scary movie or the Fast and the Furious thing that was going on inside there, it's just you have a bodily reaction. You have your breath changes, your thoughts about it change, and sometimes these have reminiscent, trails of what you're thinking. If you get in heightened response, sometimes it's not as easy as, I mean, most of the time it's not as easy as just, oh yeah, forget about it. You're gonna have this, you go to a scary movie, the dark's a little more scary that night, ain't it? Be aware of what you're consuming. If you have this consistent, fear of the dark in this analogy, what scary movies are you watching? If you have fear of bad other, if you have fear of these bad guys, if you think this thing is going to happen, what are you consuming? What's convincing you? Because why aren't all the people around you in the same state of fear? Because they're not consuming what you're consuming. They're not reading what you're reading. They're not talking to the same people you're talking to. So if you're at a point where your depression, your anxiety, these are things that humans experience. If you're having these if you're having these experiences, you are a human. Congratulations. It'd be like that sometimes. Um, it's okay. Uh, and believe me, as someone who has been through the ringer, I have my certain lows. I have had my immense. I've had plenty of anxiety attacks. I've had a lot of suicidal ideation. I have depression. I have all this shit. I've been through a lot of it, and it's been many, many years for me. You're not alone. I hate saying it gets better because this is more that carrot on a stick. You're going to arrive. I will say knowledge is power. And who you are now, or who you think yourself to be now, must fall away for who you will become to happen. uh, don't be afraid of realizing that enough is enough. Don't be afraid of realizing that, like, damn it, dude, this depression thing, I'm experiencing this sadness thing, this. Let's not buy more black clothes. Let's not listen to the music louder. Let's not find that comfort in sadness that's really there. Oh, and I mean comfort. There is a comfort in depression, and it sucks, and it's dirty, and you don't want to get out of your bed, but you have no idea what you're capable of in the future. You have no idea. You don't know the love that you get to experience perhaps in the future. You don't know the joyous moments that you still have left. How many more years do you have left You don't have to spend them sad. You can start to understand. Like, don't just, someone help me, a doctor help me, counselor help me. It's okay to do all of those things, and there's no shame in it. We're all trying to figure this thing out. We're all trying to learn our own paths. But walking down a path, whatever speaks at you most of these things, getting better, it starts to snowball. It feels fake. It does feel fake. It feels contrived. It feels like lame. It's, there's a sadness and a letting go of your old self that has to start to take place. There's a detachment from all of these thoughts. There's a scariness to all of it, because this is all like, what? Like, turning internal has not been trained to do, but we haven't been taught how to open doors from the inside. But I'm telling you, knowledge, listening to people talk about these things, listening to people conversate about them. There's so many podcasts, there's so many YouTube videos. You know, Sitting there, I don't know what to do, I can't do anything. Damn it, YouTube, go on YouTube and just search the most basic thing. Watch what jumps at you. Scroll for a little bit. Maybe there's a hot girl on the fourth thumbnail and she's talking about depression for 12 minutes, and oh, cool, maybe that's interesting. Start there. What gets suggested after that? You got to just start consuming better content. Don't consume content to numb the feeling that you're going through. Consume content that helps you deal with and understand and take by the horns and fucking handle what's going on, because you can handle it. You absolutely can handle it. We are capable of incredible things as humans, but we're made to feel small, we're made to feel incapable, we're made to feel like we need someone to come save us. And, you know, cut that leash, cut the tether, and you're going to float fine. You're going to be all right. You can handle it. The person you are right this second, maybe he can't handle it, but the person you are becoming every damn second after that, he's more and more capable. She's more and more capable. There's a video about depression and anxiety. I hope my ramblings help somebody. I will continue to do the things that I do. There it is. I'm gonna go eat some chicken tacos. Peace out. Love yourselves, y'all.